There is no other podcast like this, so proceed with caution as we challenge your beliefs by providing the forbidden information kept away from you and your family by modern medicine, so they can keep you on the path of drugs for anything and drugs for everything. Hundreds of years of preventative medical wisdom have been dismantled by Big Pharma. We are truly in the dark ages of healing. After all, it's not just about living long. It's about living well. If your continuing search for answers has led you nowhere, you will find the truth here on the Forbidden Doctor podcast. Seek the truth with your hosts, Dr. Jack and Mary Stockwell.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jack.
And Mary.
And we are here with podcast episode 89. LBJ, old Lyndon Baines Johnson, who took Kennedy's place, should have had this done for him, not an EKG.
And there he is, President Lyndon B. Johnson.
Oh, and when she says there it is, for those of you just listening to the audio file, we do have a webinar that goes along with this podcast.
Yes, and it's really exciting. This is going to be one of our better, if not our best podcasts, but the webinar is outstanding.
Because of the pictures that go along with what we're talking about, and again, that is absolutely free to watch the video as well as the audio.
Yeah.
I think if you're just listening audio, you're going to hear some stuff that, oh my gosh, I want to see that. So anyway, what I meant there was that instead of the EKG that LBJ had the day before he died of a massive heart attack, which showed that his heart was just fine, he should have had the kind of exam we are going to be talking about in today's podcast, which would have set off alarm bells throughout the country.
Yes, because an EKG just shows what has already happened to your heart.
It will show negative unless there has been some event that's affected the heart.
It doesn't show it doesn't forecast any kind of...
No, it doesn't show weakness.
Massive heart attack.
No.
Which he had the next day. So he got a clean bill of health. The next day he died of a massive heart attack.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We also want to mention our free symptom survey that you can take if you're just listening for the first time, or if you've been listening for several times and you're consumed by guilt that you haven't done this yet. You can get a username and password that will give you access to over 700 protocols from which you can search any symptom in the world.
So just go to our website, forbiddendoctor.com, and take the symptom survey, and you'll be inside the inner sanctum. Tell your family, tell your friends. Let's heal the world.
Yeah, that sounds like something I'd be interested in. All right, but before that, our weekly feature, Forbidden Secrets They Don't Want You to Know. These are the secret things they keep from you, the dumb things they tell you, and the really important things they know nothing about.
I had a patient send me their Facebook page to read a post about his wife that was recently diagnosed with glaucoma. He mentioned on the post that she was just diagnosed the day before, and he said, we are praying so hard, the meds work to buy her more time to have vision. We are absolutely devastated, and prayers and positive healing thoughts would be much appreciated. So I saw that, he sent it to me actually, and I sent him back a fantastic article from Nutrition News and Views. It's for healthcare professionals only, but we at the Forbidden Doctor are going to give it away to you guys. And it's on cataracts, macular degeneration, and glaucoma. I wrote him back and I said, I just sent you a really wonderful article on glaucoma, and I'll send you our recommendations after that. The medications she's on will help reduce the pressure, which is critical. Then you need to heal and rebuild the foundational problem. She needs some really good fat and protein in her diet because she needs certain key amino acids to rebuild her eyes. I'll send a protocol with it and blah, blah, blah. I explained all this. She needs all these different things to rebuild. And he sent me this back, Jack. This is so sad. Mary, thank you for trying to think of things. But this is primary glaucoma, which is genetic. It has to do with her physiological drainage from her eyes. I mean, he explained the whole thing. He went on and on. We have her on about 7 different meds to reduce the internal pressure from both her left eye, which is the one that's presented first. Her interocular pressure was 75 when normal is 10 to 12. So she's in serious trouble here. And also her right eye, in which they can see it is also growing tissue, and that's how they knew it was a primary, not a secondary glaucoma. We took her to an eye care specialist in Chicago who is very highly respected. I work with somebody who trains nurses, and he knows him and is close friends with this doctor and says whatever he says, trust him 100%. We are all about prayers and positive healing thoughts for sure, and you are so sweet for trying to think outside the box. Thank you. I wrote back, I'm not thinking outside the box. This is basic nutrition. It's way inside the box. It's just ignored by the, quote, respected medical establishment. If she didn't have glaucoma when she was younger and she has it now, the only thing that turned on the gene was nutrition and stresses. This can be turned around. We can put that gene back to sleep. Again, the meds will not heal her. They're very important, though. They stop a crisis for a time, but they do not heal. Of course, you should always follow your doctor's advice to save her eyesight and stop a crisis, but their profession does not work with nutrition. I'm just suggesting some nutritional help to rebuild from the inside out. Anyway, I spent way too much time with him and continue to talk to him about the GAPS diet and really getting her healed because, my goodness, this is her eyesight. But he just kept saying to me the doctors were doing all they could and they were the best doctors, and he was not ready to make broth, change her diet, or do supplements. He would just follow the doctor's recommendation. Very sad.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's very sad. But we just have this article I sent had, let me just read the conclusion of it really fast. It says, mounting evidence points to nutrition as a major factor in the prevention and early treatment of eye disorders. Results of supplementation with synthetic and or isolated substances have been disappointing, whereas whole foods keep appearing as benefactors. Years ago, Dr. Royal Lee observed that the eye conditions of some patients improved while they were taking food concentrate supplements and eating a whole food diet for other ailments. He reasoned that these responses occurred when imbalances or deficiencies were corrected so that body tissues assume their normal structure and function. In many cases, nutritional treatment, if extensive, specific, and begun in the beginning stages, can be a significant aid to recovery.
And you know, one of the really interesting things about this that he says there is that while they were working with other parts of the body that seemed to have problems, were somewhat deficient, weak, stressed, whatever, they noticed the eyes improved while they were working on other parts of the body, because the eyes are going to respond to it as well. And as we get into what we're going to talk about today, you're going to find there's a certain organ in the body that is the flagship warning of every other possibility that could happen thereafter.
Yeah, these are forbidden things they don't tell you about. So go to our website, just type in glaucoma, and you'll get the protocol that I sent him for rebuilding and helping his wife's eyesight.
So do you want to give him this big, fat disclaimer?
I want a
here?
great big disclaimer because this is so scary. This is such a protected industry, the heart. If you are not a healthcare professional and have obtained access to this podcast, you should not act upon what you see or hear without first consulting a qualified healthcare professional.
And we're saying that because when we put this stuff together, I looked at Mary, Mary looked at me, and I said, Mary, this is scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be frightening any of our listeners. And I'm not saying this in the sense of some off-the-cuff marketing trick here. We're going to be talking about the heart. Now, we have other podcasts on the heart, but we have no podcast like this one.
No.
Because of something that has just recently occurred, and there is something that's going to be offered in our clinic that you keep listening. And this is for everybody who listens to this podcast. We have a free offer for something that is absolutely vital.
Yes.
If it wasn't for my guilt, I wouldn't be doing it for free.
Well, we spent a bit of money on this. So.
Yeah, so let's talk about the heart. There are 525,600 minutes in a year. I know you wake up sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning and you turn to your significant other and say, do you know how many minutes there are in a year? And until you find out, you can't go back to sleep. Well, let me help you. 525,600. It's the same number as deaths by heart attack per year.
Wow.
Now, that's the
Wow.
death from a heart attack. There's a lot more heart attacks. In fact, there's 1,600,000 heart attacks in this country every year, fatal and non-fatal. But the fatal ones occur about every 20 seconds. A heart attack death every minute. Now, the heart, as you well know, is made of muscle and valves, and it's made of connective tissue. It's this big, big, giant collagen structure, and it is the ultimate muscle in the body. 100,000 miles of blood vessels in our bodies. The veins, the arteries, 100,000. That's almost halfway to the moon.
Wow.
In every body. 60,000 of those miles are simply capillaries. And these capillaries in most cases are so small, just a few micrometers away from every cell, that it takes a microscope to see them, but they're there. 6 quarts of blood circulated to every cell in the body every minute. So your heart beats about 100,000 times a day, which is about 35 million times a year. And during your average lifetime, which is like 70, 72 years, your heart is going to beat more than 2.5 billion times. It's going to pump 800 million pints of blood, or about 1 million barrels in one lifetime. That's enough to fill one supertanker, an oil supertanker.
More than one oil supertanker.
Yes. And blood takes about 60 seconds to circulate throughout the entire vascular system. Your heart, the adult heart, pumps about 5 quarts of blood every minute. Now, when you go get an oil change on your car, the average size car is going to get 5 quarts of oil when it gets a new oil change. Your heart pumps that every minute. Approximately 2,000 gallons of blood every day through your body.
It's amazing we don't feel this.
Yes.
You should never feel this.
And one of the great signs of health is that you don't feel this.
Yes.
You should never feel, as you said. A typical athlete's heart can churn up to 8 gallons of blood a minute. So if hold out your hand in front of you and make a fist. If you're a kid, your heart's about the same size as your fist. But if you're an adult, it's about the size of 2 fists.
Wow. And can you really believe that drugs and surgery can make all of this possible?
No.
It's amazing what our body does.
Yes, it is. Now, this was well understood by Dr. Royal Lee, and you've heard us talk about him many times in other podcasts that we've done. But he developed a machine almost 100 years ago that it showed up about the same time that the EKG did. But the EKG, the electrocardiogram, is measuring electrical signals through the heart. And if there is a heart event that occurs, scar tissue will form. And the electrical signal will not pass through that scar tissue like it does regular healthy tissue. And so that little blip shows up on the EKG reading.
It's already happened.
But it had to have already happened before the EKG can see it. Well, Dr. Lee said, we can do one better than that. How about if we got a machine that measured the strength of the heart muscle, that measured the integrity of the heart valve, and they do it by sound recording. Now, in Chapter 23 of Guyton's Physiology, and we're going to mention this a little bit later, the Bible of human physiology and schools of chiropractic and schools of medicine, talks about heart sounds and what these heart sounds look like. Now, before Guyton ever put that in their book, Dr. Lee was doing this almost 100 years ago. Well, I think 80 years is probably more accurate.
He was quite the inventor.
Yes, he was. Those of you who might be World War II veterans are familiar with the Norton bomb site. It's what made it possible to have D-Day. D-Day could not have occurred in June of 1944 without, June 6th, I think, without getting rid of the German army emplacements and batteries all along the French coast. Those guns had to be taken out or they could sink the ships that were approaching for the D-Day invasion. And the bombing that had occurred up to that time was done at about 2,000 feet. They had to get down to 2,000 feet to be able to see and accurately place a bomb on the target. But at 2,000 feet, the anti-aircraft guns could get the airplanes. And the only way they could get away from that flak is they had to bomb from 12,000 feet and higher. But at 12,000 feet, you're 2 miles above the earth, and they hit a small little target. In some cases the size like of a little additional building on the side of your house where you put your yard stuff, things like that. To hit that target from 12,000 feet was very difficult. So the Norden bomb sight was named after the fellow Norden who developed it, but they couldn't get the exact placement without an accelerometer invention. And that's what Dr. Lee came up with. He developed this device that made it pinpoint bombing accuracy at 12,000 feet.
He effectively ended World War II.
Without him, there would have been no D-Day invasion.
Right.
Now, that same device he has used for listening to the heart. Now, to listen to the heart is called auscultation. I think we'll get to that in a minute. I know I'm kind of getting ahead of it here. But I just wanted to make these points important or clear because this device is an accelerometer. It's not listening to sound so much as it's listening to acceleration inside the heart. Is the heart contracting fast or contracting slow? Is it contracting strong or is it contracting weak? That's what this thing measures, and this thing is truly revolutionary.
Yeah, he has secured over 70 U.S. patents. 70 U.S. patents. In fact, you probably use one of his patents today in your blender.
That's right.
The space shuttle apparently still uses one.
Yes, uses some of his equipment that he developed almost 100 years ago.
So,
all right. I know I went on kind of lengthy, but we can kind of get through some of this really quick here.
well, Dr. Lee's greatest love was always the subject of nutrition, and he said one of the biggest tragedies of human civilization is the precedence of chemical therapy over nutrition. It's the substitution of artificial therapy over natural, of poisons over food, in which we are feeding people poisons trying to correct the reactions of starvation.
Yeah. And that statement is as effective today as it was back then. Except in a medical, mostly in medicine. Medicine cannot connect bad nutrition with bad health. They just don't do it.
Yeah. Well, he wrote a therapeutic food manual, which they almost destroyed. The only reason we have it today is because his wife buried them, but they made him burn his life's work out in front of a library in America. You don't think
book
those...
burning.
Yeah, book burning. You don't think that goes on, but it does. But we have it to this day. But even to this day, Standard Process cannot sell his book. Is that just amazing?
Another company obtained the copyright and they sell it.
Yeah, but we have it. So despite his wealth and notoriety, his engineering marvels, Dr. Lee brought his greatest love was always the subject of nutrition.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get into the meat of this. We've kind of given you an introduction to it so far. And
we're showing a picture of the original endocardiograph from 1937. If you're watching the webinar, we have one in our office.
it looks just like that.
It smells like it's from, I mean, it's got that old, phonograph kind of smell.
Yeah, you remember. I'm going to be 66 in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. And I can remember back in the late 50s, early 60s in my grandfather's house. And they had an old Zenith TV, and you'd turn it on, and you had to wait like 2 minutes before the tube warmed up.
Yeah, and did it smell like this?
And it smelled like that room had that.
Well, really quickly, if you're watching the webinar, we have a slide of a pre and a post of an 87-year-old guy that we did on the endocardiograph, and above it shows his heartbeat, and it's not a good heartbeat. It's not lub-dub. It's just a mesh of stuff.
And with a lot of arrhythmia.
Yes, and then we had him chew up 6 cardiotrophins and 6 Cataplex B, and we waited about 45 minutes. We did another test on this old endocardiograph, and it worked beautifully, and it just comes in.
And those of you looking
Lub-dub,
at the slide,
lub-dub.
you can see the bottom graph there, just consistent and clear without all of the little squiggly line aberrations taking place between the lub-dub.
Yeah.
And this is all we gave him right here, Cardiotrophin PMG, which is something that diverts your own auto antibodies away from attacking your heart. If you're sick long enough, you're going to develop an autoimmune problem.
Everything ends up as an autoimmune.
If you're sick long enough, everything will turn into an autoimmune problem.
And then we're going to talk a lot about Cataplex B as we go along. But it powers the nervous system. This is food for the nervous system. And you have to convert your chemical energy into food. And the chemical energy, the food will convert the chemical energy
into electrical energy,
And
and
that's what I'm trying to say.
That's what the B vitamins do.
Because
whole food
B vitamins. Because your heart,
not the health food store.
your heart
B vitamins.
doesn't beat; it just sits there. It's the nerves that pound against it.
There's an electrical signal
That's
through
right.
the nerves that tell the muscle to contract.
And that's what this Cataplex B does. Vitamin B, a whole food vitamin B.
Here's a glimpse here on this next picture of the basic protocol we recommend for a general heart tonic to keep your heart strong, to keep your heart working well. We're not treating cardiomyopathy here. We're not treating any disease. We're not suggesting that you get rid of your heart medications. We're not saying anything like that whatsoever.
We don't have those words on the slide.
No, we don't.
Don't say those words.
What we have here is food-based nutrition that has been demonstrated over and over again just to strengthen the heart and support its function.
Okay, so we showed you Dr. Royal Lee's old endocardiograph, and we are proud to announce that after many, many years of trying to duplicate this machine, which they weren't able to do because all his notes got destroyed.
Yeah,
they
FDA destroyed his
They even
notes.
sent it to Japan. Those smarties over there trying to get him to recreate it. They couldn't. They sent it to Australia. They couldn't recreate it. But they finally did, and here we go. Drum roll, please.
The heart sound recorder.
There it is. The heart sound recorder. Those of you on the webinar can see a picture of it.
It is a very low-risk general wellness heart stress monitor that we use to acquire and display and record your heart sounds on all 4 heart valves.
And the cool thing is it records them into a computer now.
Oh, yes. So we have a digital record.
We have a digital record. We can do follow-ups. We can get your original heart. The other one, the old one, we had this paper tape.
Oh, gee.
We had to cut and paste it and then Xerox it and then digitize it and scan it. It was terrible.
Pain.
And you couldn't do it forever because you would run out of paper.
Right.
So this is now new and fantastic.
And it is classified. They've been waiting to release it to the market because they wanted FDA approval. And the FDA finally came back and said, listen, you don't need FDA approval. This is you don't need FDA approval on this any more than you do a stethoscope.
Awesome.
Because with a stethoscope, you're just listening to the heart. This is on the same level as the Apple Watch or your iFit device that's hanging on your wrist. That will it may monitor your heart rate, but that's about all that those things on your wrist will do. This device goes way beyond it because it does not invade the body in any way whatsoever. It's just considered a wellness device.
Yeah.
So
it just listens. It's like a seismic earthquake detector.
Well, that's what it is. It has built into the instrument that does the detection the same technology that over in Boulder, Colorado, the USGS, United States Geological Service, has stuck inside the ground these little monitoring devices. So they know last week there was 147 earthquakes in Southern California from 1 up to 4 on the Richter. If there was an earthquake in the next 10 minutes in Central Australia, as little as a 1, they would know it in Boulder, Colorado. That kind of instrumentation is what's in this device.
Well, the earthquake detector detects movement in the earth, and this machine picks up the movement of the heart.
And nothing else.
Nothing else. And your body's noisy.
Other people have tried to come up with heart sound devices, but it picks up the gurgling and the burgling and the all these
and the breathing
and especially the air moving in and out of the lungs.
This is just a brilliant machine that they could have utilized back then, and Dr. Lee begged them and cried to cardiologists, please use this. You can save so many lives, but they wouldn't even look at it.
No, they won't, because you can make more money with an EKG than you can with this. And to show you how much money this can't make, we have an incredible offer that we're making to our patients.
This device is now available in our clinic, and we're going to let you come and use it for free. It was not free to buy, mind you.
No, this thing is several thousands of dollars in cost.
It was even double what the endocardiograph was.
Yes, it was more than double, actually.
Yeah, but you have so much guilt.
I have.
About not saving the world.
One of my great mentors, and those who have been in chiropractic for a while know Dr. Fred Barge. And Dr. Fred Barge got an advanced degree in chiropractic philosophy, just one of the great leaders. And what he always did with every patient, he would listen to their heart and take their heart blood pressure before he worked on them as a chiropractor. And there's old film archives showing him doing this. He'll listen to the heart, and he will take the blood pressure, and then he
you don't
works.
do that?
I don't do that.
Well,
I don't do that unless a patient asks me. Then I get out the cuff and I get out the stethoscope and I start listening, and then I tell him what I tell him what it is. And I said it may be a little elevated because you're sitting in a doctor's office. I know my heart
But this
goes
will be
nuts in a doctor's office.
This will be very, very accurate.
This thing, you don't have to take off any clothes. You want something thin on, but it can read right through your top. And we put it over 4 different valves, and it listens, and then it records digitally on a screen what it's hearing.
Okay.
And so we're going to get to that stuff here in just a second. But one thing I want to say about the heart, and this is really important, the first organ to suffer from bad nutrition in the body is the heart. And no organ is quicker to respond to good nutrition as the heart. So that tape that we showed you a few slides before, that fellow waited several minutes, 45 minutes. Then we retested his heart, and that gave us that improved second line. That is how fast the heart can respond to good nutrition. And this is auscultation. This is simply listening to the heart. So the heart will react so quickly to other stressors, nutritional, chemical, emotional, whatever. So the heart's reaction to certain types of nutrition or stress can be within 5 to 10 minutes.
Well, Dr. Lee said 60 years ago, you can clear up heart problems with a few vitamins. I'll tell you why they don't know how to do this. It's because these conspirators who sell us these synthetic foods don't permit the doctor to know it. They actually censor all the medical literature. I challenge you to find an item in any medical book telling you the things I'm telling you
He
here.
said this back in the 50s.
Yeah.
Back in the 50s, the giant food manufacturers were controlling what went into the medical textbooks because they did not want medicine to ever learn the immediate, intimate relationship between improving or ruining your diet and the subsequent effect it would have on your body. They wanted to sell drugs.
And isn't it sad? Here we are 60 years later, rediscovering this, basically. I mean, this new machine. We should have been light years ahead of this by now.
Yes.
We shouldn't have any heart problems to speak of. They're so easy to correct.
Now, the textbook, the absolute Bible of human physiology. Now, anatomy is how the body's put together. Physiology is how it works. And the 11th edition of Guyton's, and Guyton's is the absolute Bible of human physiology. You go to med school, there's Guyton's physiology. You go to chiropractic school, there's Guyton's physiology. We study the same things. In fact, the first 2 years of chiropractic is the same as the first 2 years of medicine, how the body's put together and how it works. Now, I bring this up because in chapter 23 of the Bible of human physiology in American Health Universities, medicine or chiropractic, probably naturopathic medicine as well, chapter 23, heart valves and heart sounds, dynamics of valvular and congenital heart defects. And what they do is they show this graph as to what heart sounds look like when properly auscultated, when properly listened to, which is what this device does. And this device will show you patterns. And I'm telling you this because somebody didn't come up with this and advertise it in the back of a comic book and it didn't sell. So they're selling it to chiropractors and nurses and medical doctors and other people who are lining up to get this thing. We got number 75.
Yeah, we did.
Of the first 80.
Yeah, we hesitated a little because it was expensive.
Well, it's very expensive.
We got number 75.
Yeah. And of course we were, gosh, we could use that money to fix up the yard. No, we got it, and we're offering it for free.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is you would get the test, and you would chew up some nutritional supplements we gave you, and then wait 15, 20, 25 minutes, and then retest it, and you can see on the screen in front of you the changes taking place in your heart. And if you continued to do that, within weeks, you'd be up out of the chair. You'd be up out of the chaise lounge. You'd be up out of the sofa and getting things done again.
So you can come in, get the test, chew up what we think you need, and then you test again before you leave.
And there in front of your eyes, confirmed by Guyton's 11th edition textbook of medical physiology, you'll see the same graph showing up on this test with a heart sound recorder that you can see in Guyton's physiology.
Well, let's jump into it then. We're going to show you some graphs.
We're going to talk about rate, rhythm, and tone, but first we want to shock you a little bit. This is autopsied pictures. Oh, well, obviously they're an autopsy. These are hearts. There's 2 hearts hanging here.
Here's a medical
Nobody
doctor.
donated them, and they're not waiting for them to come back. They're
You got to go get on the webinar to see these 2 hearts. There's a healthy one on the left and a heart failure one on the right.
And the one on the right has not been touched with Photoshop. That is exactly what the autopsied heart looked like. All of the missing parts of the myocardium. The
It's
myocardium
enlarged.
being the heart muscle itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's twice the size of the other one. It looks like a big old slab of liver, and it is falling to pieces. That is heart failure. The healthy myocardium, where the heart tissue is still dense, is on the left. Now, we want to show you some graphs. We want to show you these graphs. That this is what you're going to see when you do the test. If you see this picture here that we're showing you right now on your first heart scan, we're going to salute you. We're going to pat you on the back. We're going to take your picture and put it up in the front of the office because this is an ideal graph. Lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. The rate is perfect, the rhythm is perfect, and the tone is perfect. So what can you say?
I don't know. It's just so beautiful. Normal is approximately 72 beats per minute. The optimal resting heart is 60 to 80 beats per minute, and that is the rate, and that's where we're going to start with. We're going to talk about what you need to do to get the rate perfect so it looks like this beautiful chart.
And rate could be lub-dub, 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 lub-dub. That would be tachycardia. It could be lub-dub, 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 which they call bradycardia or too slow. But you hear that it's consistent.
Well, yeah, and the mitral valve is where the lub comes from, and prolapse comes from the valve expanding and becoming weak, and it's where it arches, it like balloons back into the ventricle, and it wears out from beating wrong because it never rests. So the primary nutritional deficiency for mitral valve prolapse is magnesium. It helps the heart utilize calcium better and helps the valve become more flaccid. And you will also be a sign of a mitral valve prolapse is you'll be very tired. And
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with mitral valve prolapse. And I was so exhausted in my 30s. I remember I could not, the thought of vacuuming just absolutely sent me into a depression. I was so tired all the time. I didn't have that bam, lub sound.
Can the heart be supported in the case of a mitral valve prolapse? Of course it can.
Yeah,
And
easily.
we'll be talking about that.
Okay, and then here is the perfect ratio. This next slide is the perfect ratio with rate. And it's 1 to
A
1 to
20th
2.
of a second to a 40th of a second. In other words, an
Lub-dub.
entire heart cycle, entire cardiac cycle is lub-dub to the next lub.
Yes. And in the movies, they always do it wrong. You hear these heartbeats, and it's like lub-dub, 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 like that. And then it speeds up when it's really scary, and then it goes. But it's not that. It's 2 to 1. It's lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub.
You hear the space between the two. And in a perfect heartbeat, if you lived to be 100 years old, and this is a cool little fact, and I've mentioned this in other podcasts, your heart needs to be at complete total rest between the lub and the dub, and between the dub and the next lub. Mm-hmm. Complete, total, non-movement, completely at rest. Which means if you live to be 100 years old, the normal heart during that entire period of time will have been completely still for 67 years.
The lazy thing.
Yes, it would be beating 33 years, but completely still and motionless for 67 years.
Then you might live to 100.
Then you possibly could live to 100. And so what is known as the first sound and second sound. The second sound is the dub isn't quite as loud as the lub. It's lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. Because the dub is the closing of the semilunar valves. The lub is the closing of the mitral and the tricuspid valves. And the device that we just lay across your chest picks those accelerated movements up and shows them brilliantly on the screen.
And forecasts. Here is a
Okay,
slide
this is-
of missing a beat.
Now, this is, those of you looking at this, there's two circles on here. There's the top circle where a beat is completely missing. And I saw this on a patient the other day with the girl, she only has 3 chambers in her
Well,
heart.
That's not fair.
She's the sweetest patient in the world, but she was born with hypoventricular problems so that the left ventricle did not form correctly. So it's the right ventricle that all the rest of us is pumping blood to the lungs. It's pumping blood to her body.
But that's not what this is. This is an actual
But she had
scan.
a missing, this is not her scan.
This is not her
But her
scan.
scan looked exactly like this.
Yeah, this is scary.
It had a missing beat.
Yeah.
So for some of you, you're missing a beat and you know it because there'll be a lub-dub, 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 and the lub after the missing beat comes in lub-dub. I mean, it just
It's a
bounces
bam.
out of your chest.
Yeah.
And you go, oh my gosh, what was that? It may have been a missing beat because that next one beats even harder to make up for the missing one.
But
Now,
it's the 2-to-1 ratio we're trying to show
right.
here.
And in the second graph here, you see where the sound comes back. And so you've got 4 good beats across this bottom graph, but in the graph above it, you've only got a couple of them.
But it's also not showing the 2-to-1 ratio either in the bottom one. Nah, it's really not.
Yeah, it's off.
Yeah, it's off.
But it's an improved one from the one on
Yeah.
top because the beat showed
Mightily
up.
improved. And here's a little testimonial. A doctor that owns one of these machines, he was testing it out for, I guess, about a year, and he sent a letter to the president of Standard Process, and he said, I was testing patients today at a doctor's office, and we had some amazing patient changes from the last time we tested. This doctor has a machine now, and I have been training him over the few months. This was one patient that I thought you would like to see and possibly use in your seminars. We had her, she signed a release and everything else. We put her on Cataplex B for obvious reasons, along with adrenal desiccated, Mintran, calcium lactate, and Protofood. She feels like a new woman for several weeks now. She has not had to take her treatment for COPD, which the medical doctors say is
non-treatable.
uncurable.
She can breathe again.
She can breathe again, and she has cut her meds down 75% for her fibromyalgia as well, which included Percocet every day. And we're going to give a seminar on that.
By improving heart function, those things went away.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
There's her slides.
Yeah.
I mean, there's her graph. That's what I wanted to bring up. There's the before and after.
And if you look really close on this, I think it's 1 month apart.
It is. It's 1 month
It's
apart.
1 month.
Look
you
at that
see
improvement.
all kinds of fibrillation going on that first graph. In the second graph, lub-dub is
AFib.
returned.
That's really scary. And, if that just went on.
Well, fibrillation is,
never rests.
lub-dub, and you can have a lub-dub, so that you have fibrillation in both the atrium and the ventricle. Get your papers in order.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Very,
if
very
that's
scary.
happening, get your papers in order.
Yeah, well, look at the improvement in this lady. This
Yes.
is slide number, I don't know what slide it is, 25. So if you want to go back and
So
look
here's
at
a
that.
quick picture just coming up here really quick because this is already getting to be lengthy. What's creating the lub? And it's the closing of the mitral and tricuspid valves. It's when the heart compresses and it blows the blood up the aorta or in the pulmonary artery that's carrying blood to the lungs, or the aorta that's carrying blood to the body. As soon as the compression of the ventricles quits, and to stop blood coming back in until it's time, or to divert, to make sure blood doesn't go back up into the atrium of the left and right, those valves shut. And then as soon as the heart relaxes, they fill back up with blood again. And that's what's known as the diastole, the period of after the diastolic measurement, so that the heart can fill with blood again. And then the dub is just the opposite with the other two valves. Now, that may have sounded a little bit confusing, but if you read the picture there, it'll explain it.
Well, Dr. Lee talked talked a lot about calcium and vitamin F and how it can regulate this lub-dub. And let me read a little quote from him. He said vitamin F promotes a diffusion of calcium out of the bloodstream into the tissues and particularly into the muscle. Without calcium, we lose our endurance. We tire easily. And if the heart muscle is deprived of calcium by a vitamin F deficiency, it is unable to complete its cycle. The muscular contraction collapses before it's finished.
Now, when people are taking beta blockers because they have high blood pressure, it blocks the calcium from getting into the muscle, which will not contract without the calcium.
Can you imagine? I mean, that is so, so scary. So
we talk about this quite a bit in the Restless Legs podcast. I forget what number it is, but one of our earlier podcasts on Restless Legs talks about this intimately, goes into great detail.
Well, vitamin F ionizes the calcium in your blood. You can have all the blood in the world. If it can't get into the muscle, it doesn't do you any good.
Sure.
I mean, you can have enough calcium in your blood, it'll turn to bone.
You can have a good calcium measurement in a blood exam.
Yes.
But if it's not getting out of the blood into the tissues,
if it's not ionized,
if it's not ionizable, diffusible calcium, liquid calcium that can get into the tissue to affect the contraction, it isn't going to help.
Yeah, it moves it into your heart. Now, we talk a lot about this with cramps in the legs and restless legs, and cramps are only funny up until you have a cramp in the heart.
Yes.
So that's why we're bringing it up here right now. Is this keeps your heart beating.
The majority of heart attacks is simply a cramp in the ventricle.
So,
less than half of heart attacks is because of a clot or a thrombus.
This is a cramp. And since all the blood in your body goes through your heart every minute, that's 1 minute. 1 minute, you should be able to get rid of cramps.
And here's what we suggest to do that. To adjust the rate. Lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. Again, as Mary said here, it's talking about vitamin F. Those of you looking at the screen can take the time here to read this yourself.
Yeah. Well, we'll just move on because we're kind of running out of time. The next slide is talking about the rate. And a good, healthy heart needs two things.
And if you don't remember anything else, and I know I say this every podcast.
But this is important.
Remember this.
This is life-saving.
There are two things that are absolutely essential, as Mary said, for the heart to work. Number one, it must have a good nerve impulse. Number two, it has to have the ability to respond to a good nerve impulse. And it's, the Mets are playing tonight in a wild card game. And I kind of like the Mets because one of my favorite brothers-in-law is a real Mets diehard fan. And when you're in baseball, you're not going to have a good professional game unless you have a very good pitcher throwing 100-mile-an-hour baseball to the home plate. That's the nerve impulse. You've got to have a strong nerve impulse. And unless you've got somebody there that can respond properly, whack! Grand slam, home run over the center field fence.
Strong
Even
muscle.
though it's the other team, you've got to have a strong response or you have no ball game and your ball game's over.
So you can send all the nerve impulses to the heart, but if you don't have a good, strong heart muscle...
To respond.
Yeah. So it's two things. You got to have a good nerve impulse, and that's Cataplex B. That's food for the nerves. And then you have to have the ability to respond to that nerve impulse, and that's where cardiotrophin PMG, the protomorphogen for the heart.
Yes.
This is literally the DNA of the heart.
That's what it comes from, is bovine DNA of the heart.
Yeah.
That stimulates better tissue. So
you can eat liver and brains and tongue and other organ meats. You can eat pork and beef and raw dairy and milk and cheese and yogurt and cream and butter and bruges.
Or
you can just, I could go on and on and on. There's so many things in Cataplex B. Or you can just take Cataplex B.
Whole food vitamin B. How do you know if it's whole food? Look on the label. If it says thiamine monohydrate and it's got 100 or 200 or 300, it is synthetic. If it has riboflavin in large numbers, it's synthetic. If it has niacin and large numbers, it's synthetic. If it has pantothenic acid and large numbers, it's synthetic.
The heart doesn't beat because it has nothing better to do.
That's true.
But because it's stricken by an electricity storm that's striking the myocardium. And the tissue, it has no other choice but to beat.
Did you ever do the electrical leads to the frog legs in 8th grade science?
That's so disgusting.
I
yes.
know. The frog didn't willingly give up his legs. But we learned something. When you put an electrical impulse into a muscle, the muscle contracts. The actin and the myosin do their thing.
So the same with the heart.
The same with the heart.
It's beating because of a powerful electrical signal.
And I like the way you say that, Mary, because it's not just bzzzt, 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 bzzzt is the strength of the electrical signal coming into the heart. And so the heart hears it, and what's the heart do? It can only do one thing. It can't ignore it. Boom, it has to contract.
And
so you need a strong electrical source, you need a strong muscle, and then you'll never know you even have a heart.
But if that signal comes in erratic, you will have an erratic heart. Yes.
You're not going to be up and down the stairs as fast as you did when you were a kid.
So where do heart signals come from?
You want to go back far enough?
Yeah, let's go clear back.
Where does the signal to the heart go? It comes from the sun.
The sun. Photons and energy arriving
yes,
to the earth.
And you can't just go out there and stand in the sunlight and feel your heart speed up. It doesn't do that.
Humans can't absorb energy in that form.
The photons, the radioactive energies, the entire electromagnetic spectrum that you can't see is pounding the earth constantly. And what grabs that energy and converts that energy from the sun, that electromagnetic energy, into food?
Plants.
Plants do.
Plants do.
Exactly.
So you
Plants
eat the
do.
plants, or you eat something
They take that.
ate the plant.
They take that horrible combination of mud and dirt and bacteria
Fungi.
and heat and turns it into food.
It's a chemical store of energy.
Yeah.
That's what it does.
Yeah. The invisible
It drinks-
stuff coming from the sun turns it into something visible on the ground.
Well, plants are amazing. They like drink in carbon, okay, and give off a highly toxic residue. It would be highly toxic to the plants, but it gives off oxygen to us.
Right.
I mean, plants are life-saving.
Carbon dioxide is deadly poison to us. That's why we breathe it out as we breathe in oxygen. And the plants next door say, oh, thank you for that carbon dioxide. I'm going to take it and turn it into oxygen and give it back to you.
Yeah, and we take that chemical energy from the plant and turn it back into electrical energy. And B vitamins take that energy and do that
Especially
same thing.
something called BIOS. They don't call it that anymore. They called it vitamin B4. The reason they called it BIOS was because that was really the first thing they discovered. They call vitamin A because that was the real first concrete enzyme that they could identify as a vitamin. And so they called it vitamin A, but vitamin B4 was discovered even before that. And what they found out was this doctor over in Senegal, working with the British Empire and working with the people there that were essentially slaves. I hate to call them that because they were treated so poorly. But when they didn't get whole food vitamin B, they developed a disease that we know today as beriberi. Beriberi comes from Senegalese, which simply means I can't.
I can't.
Get up, get back to work. I can't.
I have no energy.
But they would say beriberi in their language. Now, we know that today, beriberi, you've heard that term somewhere. Well, that's where it came from. And so this doctor found out because these guys were eating white rice. That was the main staple of their food, totally deficient in vitamin B. And so their hearts wouldn't work.
They're tired.
So he got whole grain rice because the vitamin B is on the outside of brown rice, of whole grain rice. When you go to Chinese restaurants today, they usually will offer you brown rice as an alternative to the white rice because people are starting to wake up. White rice is just as deadly for you as white bread is. So he fed them the brown rice, and within weeks they were back on their feet and back to work. Now, why?
Because it's... Well, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, because vitamin B, the vitamin B1 is, in this case, vitamin B4. Now, you can go to any health food store in America today and pick up a bottle of vitamin B and look on the label. Vitamin B4 will not be there because the FDA doesn't think it exists. They say vitamin F doesn't exist.
Crazy, yeah.
They call me a quack. But vitamin B4, what they found out about 100 years ago testing with pigeons, and they would take pigeons and they would deplete the diet of vitamin B4. They would make sure whatever these pigeons were fed had no vitamin B4. They lost the ability to fly. Once they realized that and they started putting B4 back into their diets,
we could fly?
they could fly again.
Hey.
Yes, that's good, honey. Yeah. The bottom line
Peter
is
Pan.
for humans to be Peter Pan, more vitamin B4. That is in Cataplex B because that is the aspect of the vitamin B complex that converts
The
chemical energy of food into the electrical energy
energy.
to give bam, bam, the strong electrical spark into the heart.
So we get the lub-dub.
So you get the lub-dub.
Yeah. You can't do it without that vitamin. Dr. Royal Lee, I don't know how long ago this was, but he said the vitamin B4 is the one that restores function to the nerve tissue. It's very important. It's not present at all in synthetic vitamins. And that's why the synthetic vitamin won't cure fibrillation and won't restore tone to the heart muscle and stop the valve leakages and the regurgitation and the murmurs that will be stopped by the natural vitamin.
You know how we prove that?
He said that.
Bring me the vitamin B that you're taking now. I'm saying this to our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it into the office. We'll do a heart sound recording on you. Then we'll have you take your vitamin B and we'll test you again in an hour and see what happened.
Yeah.
You're not going to see the changes that chewing up Cataplex B will give you.
We can do the same thing. We can have them bring in, Skittles and then test them again and show what happens.
That's not funny.
Oh, I know.
You're serious.
Yeah, or Coke. Drink
or
a
a
Coke.
drink of a soft drink,
Yeah.
anything that's loaded with sugar, and watch what it does to your heart in the next few minutes.
Or antioxidants.
Or antioxidants. Bring in your favorite antioxidants.
Yeah, let's take out
Bring
all
in
the
your
oxygen.
alpha-lipoic acid.
Let's see what that does to
and
the
I'll
heart.
show you on the heart exam what it does to the heart.
Yeah.
So this is
We
Dr. Lee talking about vitamin B deficiencies. Arrhythmias, fibrillations, hypotension, loss of appetite, slow heart rate, poor muscle tone, leg weakness, fatigue, lack of stamina, coldness, postprandial fatigue. That's where you eat something and then you just totally collapse.
Ew.
And I don't mean after Thanksgiving with high doses of tryptophan that's in turkey. I mean any meal that you eat that's big and, oh gosh, I can't rest, I got to go sleep. Vitamin B deficiencies. Heart failure, diabetes, high carbohydrate diet, stimulus, the beriberi that I was just mentioning there a moment ago, and especially edema, decreased urination, holding on to fluids, and ascites. Ascites is the collection of fluid around the gut in the abdominal area. Just a lot of fluid building up in there.
Yeah.
Vitamin B deficiencies. Yuck. No thanks. So this is what another thing, Dr. Lee, boy, it was 51 minutes. Something that Dr. Lee said relative to the heart. He says, I'll give you a tip on that potassium thing too. If you're deficient in potassium, your heart tends to run away into race. Paroxysmal tachycardia, also known as PATs, is a specific example. You can correct that right now with alfalfa tea or alfalfa tablets or mineral extracts of alfalfa or kelp. A patient can have congestive heart failure with potassium deficiency, where there was no other cause. Paroxysmal tachycardia often comes on after a heavy meal. Why? Because you eat a lot of carbohydrate and ice cream and sugar and pie and cake, and that sugar has to be stowed away in the liver and muscles, and it requires potassium to go along with it. And when the potassium is all used up and there's some sugar left maybe, that's when you're really in trouble. That's when the old heart starts popping off. This is how they talk back then. The patient goes to bed after a heavy meal and wakes up with their heart pounding. Now, I know someone listening to this right now, that's exactly what's happening to you. That's a potassium deficiency. You should cut down on your carbohydrates unless you want to die and get more potassium.
Tell us how it really is, Dr.
Yes,
Lee.
and that's a good thing to ask every patient. Did they ever have their heart obvious to them? The heart is laboring away at night. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't even know you've got a heart. Never feel it. If you do, you better do something about it. Number one, cut down on the carbohydrate. And number two, get more potassium. That will clear it right up. So what we offer our patients is organically bound minerals because it's one of the highest sources of organic potassium we can offer.
Yeah, it's an amazing product. And you can chew it up and that heart will stop pounding
in minutes. Just in minutes,
And
that
it's
pounding will
pennies.
disappear.
It's pennies. It can be life-saving. And your heart will stop popping off. I love the way he said
That's
that.
cute. All right, let's talk about arrhythmia for a minute. Really
Okay.
quick here. Again, here's 2 heart scans.
Here's a very scary picture on the webinar.
Same person. The bottom line's 4 days later. The top line is arrhythmia. All those squiggly lines, the heart never stopped moving.
It can
all
lead to
the way through.
It can lead to blood clots, stroke, heart failure, and other heart-related complications. That's from the American Heart Association, arrhythmias and AFib. The most important thing is that the heart doesn't lose its coordinated rhythm. A heart out of rhythm causes great turbulence.
Let me give you an example. Lub-dub, 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 dub, lub-dub, lub-lub-lub-lub, lub-dub. That's arrhythmia. That's even better, Mary.
Well, you got to think of it as moving water in a tub with your hand back and forth and back and forth. Whether you go fast or slow, back and forth, the water's just going to move around. But if you took your hand and you went out of rhythm and you stopped and start, you would create so much more turbulence in the
all over
water.
the bathtub, you could see this. You can demonstrate it for yourself.
Yeah. So it causes massive blood disturbance.
Right. That's what happens inside the aorta and in the aortic arch.
And that causes tremendous stress.
Yes.
Tremendous stress on the walls of the arteries, the veins, and the capillaries, causing things to dislodge on the walls.
Yes,
That's
and
what's
with
really
this
scary.
100,000 miles in you every minute, the blood moving through every minute, causing tremendous stress on the walls of the arteries and the veins and the capillaries. And just as you said, it knocks things loose. But this is fibrillation. This is the heart that's quivering. I mean, it should be napping in the heartbeat.
And what will doctors do when they see?
Oh, they're going to give you, we have a heart treatment coming up here in just a second. That explains in detail what they do.
Yeah, doctors will literally stop your heart to stop AFib.
Yeah, and then start it again.
With a drug. They just hope your heart will start back up again. The drug they usually give is
almost
the
every
digitalis.
Almost every building now has a defib. Airplanes carrying them now. A lot of businesses and offices, because people going into a heart event, a cardiac event, usually can be preceded with an arrhythmia or fibrillation, where the is going on, and it zip, bam, bam, and the body arches, and they put those defib paddles on you, blast you with 400 volts, whatever, I don't know, whatever it is, and it resets the heart. In some cases that works, but it doesn't fix the malnutrition state of the heart. It just gets it beating again, so that you can get, because when the heart's going, what's it doing? The blood's coming in and sitting there, and it's moving around, and some of it goes out, some of it goes back up the wrong way, and so the brain doesn't get the blood, you die.
Yeah. Well, the drug they use is digitalis to restart your heart medically.
Yeah.
Dr. Lee talked about this in the 1930s. Many doctors talked about this. When the heart pumps properly, the muscle contractions are regulated by waves of calcium. When the heart relaxes, the calcium is stored. When the heart contracts, it is released. In AFib, the calcium is released too early. As it leaks out, the heart begins too fast and irregular, and it beats irregularly. There's no rest period in AFib, and your heart will just
simply wear out.
Wear out.
Totally fatigues and wears out.
Okay, here's an example of rhythm gone bad.
Yeah, the first one is the ideal graph.
It's a perfect one.
Yeah, and then the second one is where arrhythmia starts showing up. There's no flat lining there between in the systole or the diastole. The systole is that space after the systolic contraction. The diastole is after the second heart sound, where there should be a flat line. That period is known as the diastole. And you notice in this mitral, looking at the mitral valve, there is no rest.
And this is also, like we talked about before, a mineral deficiency.
Yes.
For the rhythm.
Then the next slide.
There's an ideal graph, and then what is this? The mitral.
Well, see the second sound, or the first. We're talking about the first sound, where the circle is, and you notice it's starting to spread out. In other words, the squiggly lines there are not tight together. They're spreading out compared to the one before it and the one after it. Very small, but it's there because the rhythm is starting to be interrupted. Your heart wants to beat. It wants to beat like crazy. It has nothing better to do. But like you said, it gets this powerful electrical storm hitting it. But if the muscle isn't strong enough to respond to it, somebody comes through the neighborhood with a horn blowing. There's a fire. There's a brush fire down the end of the street. Get out, get out. I'm just so tired. I don't know if I can make it. That's what the heart's doing.
Right.
There's the sound. There's the signal. Get out, get out. Orderly evacuation off of the street. Go down the street and go down and turn left and then drive for 5 miles to a Red Cross center. I don't know. I don't know if I can make it. I'm so tired.
Well, and then if you have an electrical storm where your heart is just beating erratically, here's what the medical people will do. And I actually had a patient have this done.
I had a patient to tell me today.
Today,
yeah.
Wow.
Jim. I'm not going to say his last name, but Jim.
Yeah, they'll do an oblation. They'll literally go in and scar the heart.
With an ablation, they go up through the groin, through the inferior vena cava, and they go all the way up into the right ventricle or right atrium, and then they go to different parts of the heart muscle. Zip, zip. Either with RF, with some radio frequency, or very hot or very cold tips, they kill parts of the heart muscle where the quivering takes place.
This is crazy.
Instead of finding out why it quivers
and fix it,
they go, let's just stop the quivering. Stop it.
It's like taking out a thyroid when your thyroid's bad. Just take it out.
Take it out.
Just burn up your heart.
Don't find out why and fix it.
The scary thing is there's no going back from this. When you have a scar, I have a bunch of scars. I've had 6 C-sections. And on the scar itself, there's no feeling. There's no electrical pulses that go zipping through there.
No, it interrupts it.
It interrupts it completely. So this is how, in my opinion, the dark ages of trying to stop AFib, they'll go in and do this oblation and burn your heart. And it doesn't come back from this.
No, it won't. It won't restore.
So I suppose they don't do this till the end stages. But where there's scarring, there's no nerve invitation.
Yes.
In other words, where scar tissues form, it will no longer stimulate the heart.
Yeah, it stays.
And that's how your heart beats.
It doesn't move.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Parts of my heart are not moving. Isn't that
They can't
cute?
contract.
No, it can't contract.
They can't do anything.
So then you get drugs on top of that force the heart to contract,
And
like whipping a dead horse.
And here's what Harvard Medical School says. Scientists don't fully understand the basic problems behind AFib. And here's another one, editorial commentary by the Journal of Heart Rhythm.
2013.
2013, where does it say?
What are you trying to find?
I'm trying to find where they don't know. Oh, they're talking about AFib is an autoimmune disease.
Yeah, because they think AFib shows up once the heart starts getting attacked by its own immune system.
Well, it could.
But
it could be part of that.
Yeah, because of heart damage.
Yeah, but it's nerve damage.
Yes.
You don't have that good, strong signal, and then you don't have a good, strong muscle to respond to that.
So at the end of that, it says, such efforts may lead to a promising alternative in atrial fibrillation treatment involving the detection and removal of pathogenic autoantibodies as a therapeutic strategy. Again, they're coming in the back door. They're not coming in the front door to take care of the problem.
No, they're trying to wipe out. They put you on some kind of plasmapheresis, which takes all the autoantibodies out, and it just lasts for a short time. They don't fix the problem. That's why we say in the opening of our podcast, we're in the dark ages of healing.
Yes.
This should have been done and figured out 60 years ago.
Healing today is controlled by the pharmaceutical and hospital equipment interests.
Yeah.
And they want people sick, and they want people in the hospital.
Yeah, well, that's why.
So we need to take a break.
Okay.
No, don't stop anything. I'm just going to play some music because it's an hour, and it's going to take another 15, 20 minutes to dun, 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 dun. No, I'm doing this so that if you want to stop now while you're listening to this and take a little potty break or something else, we're going to come back because we're going to be talking more about rhythm, but we're going to be coming towards the end. So when you hear the music, you know that it's time that you can put your unit on pause. Da, 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 da. All right. So now we're starting it back up again. And I just wanted people to be able to go take a break. I should have told you in advance. I only thought of this at the last second, but it's a freaking hour. This is the longest podcast we have ever done.
Well, it's the most important.
And it's the life-saving one. It's more important than any other one we've done. And we're not done yet.
Let's jump
a few more minutes yet.
Let's jump into rhythm. Rhythm is the second heart sound. That's the dub. Lub dub. Lub dub. Lub dub.
So we're talking about, we've been talking about rhythm. We're continuing to talk about rhythm here in the relation of cataplex F. But rhythm is whether or not you're having interruptions to the lub-dub. And that's what fibrillation is. It's what arrhythmias are, where you're not getting a consistent lub-dub. Now, you can have a fast lub-dub. You can have a slow lub-dub. But when you have lub-dub-dub, lub-lub-dub, lub-lub-dub, lub-lub-lub-dub, that's arrhythmia. That's where it is not beating in rhythmical pattern. So what do we do?
Well, cataplex F, which pushes calcium into your heart, because without calcium in your heart, you lose your endurance and you'll be very, very tired. So the first sound, S1 is what they call it, sound 1, without the second sound, that's what happens if you don't have calcium being pushed properly into your muscle.
Exactly.
So the second sound is due to the backing up of the blood after the push from the contraction, and the blood backs up and closes the valve. And it should close it really.
Oh, yeah, slam shut.
Smack it. It shouldn't be.
Shut.
It's like slamming the door as you leave. You
Exactly.
know? The old. What's that song?
Oh, don't let the
Yeah, don't
let
let
the door hit you on the way out. Is that a song?
Yeah, I mean, how anticlimactic would it be if it was like a sheet over the door as they left?
Don't let the sheet hit you on the way out. No, that's kind of silly, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a door. Slam,
But if you got a screen door
bam.
that just slams shut, that's what the valve is supposed to do at the end of the contraction.
Sound it's supposed to make.
Yes.
Yeah. So the valve closing is the second sound. And if the contraction collapses before it's completed or it fades away, there isn't enough velocity produced to cause that reaction. And so we only get the first sound of the heart.
Yes.
We don't get the dub.
Lub.
And then the
Lub.
sheet goes whoosh,
Lub.
whoosh,
Lub.
whoosh. And it
In
should be lub.
minutes.
Slam.
In minutes, the dub can be restored using cataplex.
Cataplex F will bring back that second sound. So we have a slide here that says all the calcium in a limestone quarry will do you no good without the nutrients to move it where it belongs. So that's what cataplex F does. It ionizes it and moves it into.
And we've got a perfect graph to show it here on the next slide.
Here is
the top one. You just see the first sound.
There's
Lub.
no second
Lub.
sound. There's
Lub.
not even a sheet there,
Lub.
Jack. That's not even
Lub.
whoosh.
And then you see that was the first one was June 27th of this year. The next test was 2 months later, 8/25. There's the second sound showing
This
up.
person was put on cataplex F, cataplex B, and some calcium. And
Lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub across the bottom of the screen.
yeah, that second sound probably came back much sooner than 2 months, but they weren't tested until 2 months.
Right. I can show it in minutes. So when you were talking there a few moments ago about rhythm and how important it is, here's Dr. Xander Wayrens, MD, PhD, teaches medicine at the Baylor College of Medicine. When you were talking about calcium, this is so important. Let me quote him. When the heart pumps properly, the muscle contractions are regulated by waves of calcium. When the heart relaxes, the calcium is stored. When the heart contracts, it is released, says Dr. Xander Wayrens, Assistant Professor of Molecular Physiology and Biophysics and Cardiology at the Baylor College of Medicine. Quote, in atrial fibrillation, the calcium is released too early as it leaks out and the heart beats too fast and irregularly. Why? To make up for the fact that it's lost the contractile strength because the calcium leaked too quick. That is the job of vitamin F, cataplex F, to drive that calcium deep into the heart tissue.
Okay, this next slide, and you can see this when you're watching the webinar, shows all the products that help with rhythm, if you've got some rhythm.
Now, when she says help, again, we are not treating arrhythmia. We are not treating fibrillation. We're just showing you what we use with patients that can show an immediate change in a heart sound recorder.
Pre and post.
Pre and post over several minutes, that you can see an actual change in the heart sounds. The heart sounds described by the physiology book, Guyton's. It's in the 10th edition. It's in the 11th edition, where he talks about the heart sounds, how they can be recorded, and what an arrhythmia looks like, what fibrillation looks like. And if you can show on a post-test a few minutes later those lines flattening out, what does that tell you? The heart is responding. No organ in the body responds faster to good nutrition than the heart.
Or you can go burn your heart.
Or you can go get it ablated. That's true. All right.
Oh, bless
So
you.
we want to bring these pictures back up to you again, just kind of catch you up to what a healthy heart and a sick heart
and
looks
what
like.
we're showing for those of you on the podcast, not on the webinar, is again the same picture of the healthy myocardium heart and the heart failure on the
Yes.
right. And we're talking about tone here. We're moving from rhythm now to tone. Tone, how would you describe tone?
The muscle
It's the
itself,
strength
in
of
the
the
sense
muscle.
the strength of the muscle. That's the tone.
Yeah.
When people go to a gym, they want to improve the tone of the body, which means they're just strengthening and tightening their muscles. Here's how you're going to strengthen and tighten the muscle of the heart.
And you listen to the mitral valve for the tone. The mitral is the one that pumps out blood to the entire body. It's the
the left ventricle
It's-
pumps it out, but it's the mitral valve that makes that possible. And with a
better way to put
strong
it.
mitral valve, this is where you get into ejection fraction. How much of the blood that filled the left ventricle actually leaves
out.
during a compression? And 75% is considered very, very good. But there's a lot of people whose ejection fractions are down 30, 40% because the muscle is not strong enough to get the blood out. So what do? They give them electrical stimulus to improve the rate with a pacemaker, and then they give them drugs to make it beat harder. That's just like the horse finally drops in the middle of the desert carrying your backpacks and it's just sitting there in the sand, and what do? You take your belt off of your pants and start whipping that horse. What's going to happen? That's exactly what you do.
You'll get a little more out of it.
Yeah, you get and you're not going to get much more than that.
Yeah.
And you start whipping a heart that's already sick, I'm telling you, it's just going to say, that's enough. Bye-bye.
Okay,
So, well, one thing I want to point out here is that the life cycle of a heart cell is 30 days.
yeah.
Why does heart disease continue past 30 days? You got a sick, diseased heart. 30 days later, you've got a sick, diseased heart. Why? Because of the nutritional value of the food that you're eating. It either is heart-rich foods that can give you a new heart in 30 days, not a new valve, but a new heart muscle. I'm talking about the myocardium.
Yeah, and it's
Valves are made out of collagen. They're different material than cardiac tissue. But the cardiac tissue changes every 30 days, and you go from a sick heart to a sicker heart to a sicker heart to a sicker heart until we finally have a heart that won't beat. And it's only 30 days old. What the heck happened? Because of serious malnutrition of vital ingredients in a nutritional profile necessary to give you a strong electrical signal and a heart that will respond to it.
Well, it needs the right nutrients, and even if you do supplement with all these nutrients, if you can't break them down, you have a problem. And we're going to talk about that in our next podcast, because we had a lady that had some real bad heart problems, but we didn't realize she was on tremendous drugs.
Fire in the belly.
Yeah.
That's going to be our next podcast.
Yeah, but it needs the right nutrients. The life cycle of a human heart is 30 days. 100% of every cell in the human heart is remade and reborn in 30 days. So you need to have good digestion to break down the proteins and the fat and everything else you need to rebuild that heart. The heart needs tons of oxygen, and with angina, it can't get enough oxygen, nor can any of the other organs. So you have to rely on breathing or panting to get enough oxygen in you. So that's one of the, well, we haven't really talked about this too much, but the Cataplex E2 brings that oxygen.
Which is the food equivalent of nitroglycerin.
Yeah.
Causes vasodilation, but it forces the oxygen locked up in the heart muscle itself into an area of the heart where the heart can actually utilize the oxygen.
Okay, let me show you a chart here of tone. This
is a weak tone. The very top line, that squiggly line inside the circles, that should be flat. And that is suggestive right there of mitral valve
regurgitation
prolapse.
murmur.
Yeah, regurgitation.
Yeah, the first round drops off at the end. It falls off. And it's the same kind of energy you'd have through the day if you have a regurgitating murmur like this. You would have not enough energy. You would start strong in the morning, and then the energy just goes away. And by the end of the day, you're just exhausted. Your heart should beat as strong at the end of the day as it does at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, it's not supposed to get tired like your muscles or your back does.
So that spread out first sound, the S1.
It's twice as wide as it should be.
Yeah. That's a regurgitation.
And then all those squiggly lines between them, that's an arrhythmia.
Yeah, that's not good either. It doesn't get a rest. And you can think of these valves. They're made of different material than the heart.
Just real condensed collagen.
Yeah, and when the heart enlarges, the valves don't enlarge, and that's why the blood can leak around that.
Right.
So you got to tighten that heart back up. That muscle has to be super strong. And remember, you can do this in 30 days. That's the most.
Every 30 days.
Yeah. Okay, this graph, this next slide, we're on slide 48 here. This graph shows irregularity before
this is stenosis.
Before the first sound.
Yeah, stenosis. So why would there be stenosis before the first sound? The first sound is the valve closing. But if there's stenosis so that the valve area is narrowed instead of whoosh, you get a whoosh, whoosh, the blood is going through a smaller area, so whoosh, you hear this stenotic sound. So at this point, it will show up on this heart graph. And again, this comes from Guyton. This is in the physiology book, chapter 23, where the little squiggly line before the first sound is the sound of blood before the valve completely closes. It's a whoosh sound because it's going through a smaller hole, which is what stenosis is.
Stenosis closing down, yeah.
All right.
And in this graph also there's a third sound, which is really scary. A third sound is associated with heart failure, adverse outcomes, infarction, and death.
Yes.
Just that. It's a profound loss of motor control. You can't generate a heart impulse. It's like an engine that surges and then slows down. It's drifting away.
People describe this. People say, I felt like I was drifting away.
Yeah, and they die.
Yes.
That's why death is one of the side effects of having a third sound. You just drift away.
So when you see the first squiggly lines of this picture, there's a big one and a smaller one, which is the first and second sound, but there's a third sound. Yeah. And some people have, when they hear this through a stethoscope, as well as on a heart chart, it sounds like Kentucky, 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 Kentucky.
Ooh,
there's the third sound coming through. And when a cardiologist hears that, I got some drugs for you.
I suppose.
Well, we've got some food for you.
Yeah.
Now, we're not treating third sound irregularities.
No, we're not.
We're just showing this is how far the heart has gone downhill. So, I'm going to quote from Dr. Lee again. The patient with heart disease or with these reactions, and I'd say that 90% of the people in this room have some of them, they all disappear when you get the right food. So it's not a serious thing. Of course, if the patient drops dead before he learns about it, then it is serious. I mean, that's the end. There's no hope. We can't revive dead people. But I've seen several people that had their death certificate made out by the doctor who were revived with vitamins and who lived many years afterward. And that just goes to show how close to death we can be from starvation and still come back. One of these factors is the vitamin B group maintains muscle tone, and there's a complete relaxation without it. The doctor listens to your heart and tells you that you have an enlarged heart when you have this acute deficiency. He'll probably also tell you that you've got some murmurs due to valve leakage that Mary was just talking about. Well, when the heart enlarges, the valves are made of cartilage and they don't enlarge, so that's the opening.
Where did I learn that from?
I don't know where you got that.
Good old Dr. Lee.
The enlarges along with the heart, and there's bound to be leakage from the enlargement. It's that simple. You supply some of this vitamin B4, which promotes the muscle tone. The heart will contract to normal size, usually inside of 10 minutes. The valve leakage disappears. So there's another easily corrected thing that was formerly considered pretty serious. Most people would feel if they had valve leakage in their heart, they'd feel, in fact, that they would be told that it's something that they should watch. The average doctor will tell them that it never will be normal again, and that if they take care of it and don't overload it, they'll be able to live nearly a normal life. I put in nearly. They don't even know that they can clear it up with a few vitamins, and I'll tell you why they don't know. It's because these conspirators who sell us these synthetic foods don't permit the doctor to know it. They actually censor all the medical literature. I challenge you to find any item in any medical book telling you the things I'm telling you here. Yet 100 years ago, you could read this in medical textbooks.
This is so sad.
But from 1950 on, it's gone. It's not in medical textbooks anymore.
This is sad. This is criminal.
If you don't, Well, that's a lot of pills. I don't want to take all those pills. Well, we've got some alternatives for you.
Here you go. This next slide, number 53, is an alternative to Cataplex B, heart reduction surgery.
You got a big heart? Let's cut a piece out of it.
They literally do that. They cut a piece out of the left ventricle and pull it together. This is what I had with my abdominoplasty.
Yeah.
Because I had those 6 C-sections I was talking about.
Yep.
My muscles were split all to the side. They pulled my muscles in, tied them tight together, and sewed me back up.
Yeah, but your tummy isn't beating blood.
No, but
so
it was
what they'll
great.
do with a heart that's enlarged that can easily be reversed through proper nutrition, they'll cut a piece out of it and make it smaller. But when you cut out the muscle from the part that's beating the blood to the body, what can you expect after that?
Well,
yes,
there's no
we can,
going back.
We can reduce the heart through surgery, ma'am. But you're not going to be gardening anymore. How about scrapbooking?
Okay, I shouldn't laugh.
No,
That's
it's
really
not
sad.
funny. Let's go to the next one.
Wait. Before we move on to that one, I wanted to talk a little bit about digitalis.
Yeah, what they're going to do once they cut the hole in the heart and then have the heart heal, which will heal rather quickly, a smaller heart. What do they do with it then?
They got to beat it.
What are they going to beat it with?
This it's actually this drug digitalis. They get it from an herb. It's called foxglove.
Yes.
And it's very powerful, but it doesn't correct the reason for the slow heart. It's and the I don't know how to
Digoxin.
say that. Digoxin, that's right, is the synthetic form of digitalis. And it's like whipping a horse. It works, but it does not heal and actually wears out the horse.
Imagine that.
Yeah, shocker there. So I say this often about herbs. I think herbs can be really great. They're medicinal. They're not necessarily curative by any means, but they do something. It depends on the herb, but this herb which they've synthesized, so it's not even an herb anymore, just beats the heart up. So just because you can whip an organ to make it work harder doesn't mean you should. And also, Dr. Lee talked about taking it easy for about 2 weeks to let the heart heal. I think that's an important point to point out.
Yeah, so once you know that there's a problem with the heart and you start doing something nutritionally about it, take a couple of weeks off while you're doing that nutritional regimen. Have the heart sound recorded again about 2 weeks later and watch and see the changes that take place.
Okay, so you can do that. You can cut out your heart, or there's an alternative here to food, to Cataplex B. You can go get yourself an Acorn Core Cap Cardiac Support Bra.
Yes.
Literally. If your heart is
knitted-
enlarged, they can put this bra around it and pull it up
To keep it from getting bigger.
to keep it from getting bigger. I mean, I have to talk like a little baby because that's kind of what I think of it.
See, there's always alternatives to good food.
Yeah. You can
Put a
just
bra on your heart.
go get a bra on. Here's another one. This is the Paracord Heart Net System. Now, those of you that aren't watching the webinar, there's a heart here, and they put this like a hair net, literally a hair net around the heart. Because a hairnet, it has better flow than that bra.
Yes,
See,
better
so
airflow.
You got better airflow, but when you take it off the heart, you have all these suntan lines.
This is from the 2010 Scientific Meeting of the Heart Failure Society of America. Trial was stopped after a pre-specified interim analysis suggesting that 6 months of treatment with the HeartNet Paracore medical device had no effect on some functional endpoints.
Oh, is that a real meeting?
Oh, yeah.
That was a real meeting?
The Heart Failure Society of America.
2010 scientific meeting.
Yeah.
So they gave up on this cute little hairnet on the bra.
Well, this is for those who don't want to take pills.
Yeah.
I don't want to take my supplements. There's too many.
No.
Well, okay, do this. Try
get
this.
hairnet.
All right.
Okay, this next slide. This is a surgical. We're showing you a picture of a slide with heart surgeons doing heart surgery. It's graphic. It's really yucky. You probably don't want to see this if you have a weak stomach. But this is really brilliant doctors, and this is an inside view of true healing. And they are pouring Cataplex B into the heart. Okay, that was just funny.
All right.
But the next slide is not funny. These are the supplements you can take instead of cutting out part of your heart, putting a bra on, and going through heart surgery. Just try to take the cardiotrophin, Cataplex B, Cataplex E2, Cataplex E, and Cataplex C. So just as you take gentle care of yourself as you bathe in the morning and you eat and you clean your clothes and you brush your teeth, also take your supplements. You can love yourself.
Again, we are not treating cardiomyopathy. That's what cardiologists do.
And I don't mean to say don't get that heart bra, don't get that heart surgery if they're saying that, if your doctors are recommending that. Yeah, but this would be a very good thing to take along with that.
Or to do it first.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make this clear. We are not treating cardiomyopathy. We're just giving you some recommendations for some nutritional approach to strengthen the force of the heart contraction.
Slide 58 shows our protocol. We've had this protocol forever. It's our Heart Healthy Protocol. And simply go to forbiddendoctor.com and search for Heart General Support, and you'll see this protocol there.
Then by way of review, we're going to recap here really quick, and we'll be done here in the next few minutes. A good, healthy heart needs two things. A good nerve impulse. I think we've pretty well demonstrated that. And it needs the ability to respond to the good nerve impulse. It has to hear the signal. It's got to have the strength to respond to the signal. If those two things are present, I'm telling you, you'll go your whole life and never know you had a heart.
So if you don't remember anything else that you need to supplement with, remember these two products, cardiotrophin. It's the extract of heart to support your heart muscle function. It will also stop any autoimmune disease in its tracks, and then you rebuild it with Cataplex B.
An autoimmune attack against the heart.
Autoimmune attack against the heart, that's right.
There's a huge area of medical research going on right now called oral tolerization. You can Google that. And what they persecuted Dr. Lee for in the 1940s and 50s is now a major area of medical research.
Yeah,
the body actually attacks itself.
Have we done a podcast on protomorphogens and autoimmune? I don't know that we have.
I'm not sure.
We're kind of losing track now. Maybe we'll do one in the future. Cataplex B, of course, is for nerve.
Is to give your heart a strong nerve impulse.
And again, we have this new heart sound recorder. They're not calling it an endocardiograph machine because I think they got in trouble through the years for that. So they're calling it.
It's not that they got in trouble for the machine. They got in trouble for what they said the machine would do. And they talked about it treating. It doesn't treat.
No.
It just more than a stethoscope treats. It just listens, and then it tells you what it hears. And when it hears a weak muscle, it's right there on the graph. When it hears an improperly functioning valve, it's right there on the graph.
On slide 62, you'll see a picture of a patient with the heart graph.
Sitting over the mitral valve, listening to the mitral valve.
And you'll see how non-invasive it is.
Yeah, it just sits there, and then it moves over, and then it goes up below the neck for the pulmonic and aortic valves.
So get a appointment scheduled to get a free heart sound recorder test. We have them in our office. For those of you that are listening to this across the country and across the world, they just started selling these, and we're getting a list of all the doctors all across the country.
By January, But by January, they'll be able to release the list of people who have these and what parts of the country.
Yeah,
they're
we'll
available.
put that on our website so you can go somewhere.
Those people in our area, it's free.
Yeah.
It's a free test.
Yeah. And a recap, when we do a heart sound recorder test on you, we will have a list of all these supplements in front of you, as you see in slide 63, and we will just quick check off the ones that we
2
think.
or 3, 4, maybe, whatever, 1 or 2, whatever it is.
Certainly not all these.
Oh, heavens no.
Yeah. These are the list of supplements that we pick from you to help you. But I want to really stress this does not take the place of your cardiac medications.
No, you don't start this by stopping whatever you're taking.
No, these are
Your
not
beta
heart
block,
drugs.
You know, any heart drugs you're taking, you take your heart drugs until your cardiologist says you don't need to.
Yeah. So you be very careful. But I did want to give a list of all the products that do support the heart. A couple of them that I want to talk about really quickly, and I'm just going to spend 1 second on it. One of them is so critical because it's so useful in the with a stroke. It's called Cyruta Plus. The RU stands for the Rutin, Cyruta Plus. And Rutin is so critical for rebuilding the arteries and your heart, actually,
Yeah,
too.
and Harvard Med School, didn't we say that at the beginning of the podcast, what Harvard Med School said?
No.
They said this, quote, "Indeed, if scientists had tried to design a clot-preventing molecule, they could scarcely have created one more perfect than Rutin."
Rutin will seal and heal a leaking burst clot.
Yeah, and that's from Harvard Medical School, 2012.
Clots appear in both arteries and veins, and Rutin can, they said this, not me, can prevent both types of clots. Rutin has proved to be the most potentially antithrombotic compound tested. That's pretty amazing. The alternative to that is a drug. There's one called how do you
Eliquis,
say
but
Eliquis.
there's also
That's a
warfarin out there.
yeah, the anti-clotting drugs. But the problem is if you get bumped with that Eliquis, you will die.
Well,
you'll bleed to death in
Coumadin
minutes.
is the one that's been around for a long time, but now they've come out with Eliquis. There's no antidote to it.
No,
If you start bleeding on Eliquis,
there's nothing they can do.
It's over.
You're done. So tiny capillaries that transfer blood from arteries to veins are the weak spots in the circulatory system. Disaster in varying degrees follows the rupture of these capillaries. That was in Collier's March 15th, 1947. So Rutin is what you would take to rebuild and strengthen those capillaries and the arteries. The other one we want to talk about real quickly is soybean lecithin. This lowers your blood viscosity and keeps cholesterol suspended in the blood and moves it to the liver, so it doesn't block cause a blockage. Basically, it just I don't know how it mixes with the cholesterol in the blood, so it keeps it suspended there, so it won't clot up. And it's like a wheelbarrow. It's not a treatment. It just is like whoosh, get this.
well, it's a tool.
Yeah, get it out. Send it to the liver.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it allows the bloodstream to float or deliver cholesterol to the liver for disposal through the bile. So it also lowers your triglyceride level too. So that's 15.
As much as 23%.
Yeah, 15 to 23%. And also, if you have here's a little gem, a little forbidden gem, good strong ovaries that produce the proper amounts of thyroxine. I bet you didn't know that. The ovaries
No,
produce.
ovaries will. When
They
the thyroid is a sluggish thing, ovaries will
We
produce
talked
thyroxine.
about this in one of our podcasts. That they will keep cholesterol in suspension also in the arteries instead of it plaquing on the wall. So that's a little gem there. Okay, so we are finishing this up. Just don't forget to take our free symptom survey on our website, forbiddendoctor.com. Then you can get inside and search for heart
general support.
Heart general support is where we have
The protocol we recommend as a regular daily tonic.
And we have to read the disclaimer for those of you on the podcast. These statements above have been made about specific products have not been evaluated by the the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided or any information contained on or in any product label or packaging or this webinar or podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional.
And may I add, don't run with scissors. Don't tell lies. And
don't put your hand into a burning fire. Don't argue with your mother. And as always, always remember, buy low, sell high.
there we go.
Okay.
All right, that'll do it. This is an hour and a half. This is the longest one we've ever done. But we have dramatic slides here for you to actually see what it is we're talking about.
So get that heart healthy, and we will see you next week.
With fire in the belly.
Heartburn.
All right, that'll do it.
Thanks for listening to the Forbidden Doctor podcast with Dr. Jack and Mary Stockwell. It's our pleasure to join you on your health revolution and look forward to our quest for health together. Join us again next week for more health secrets and forbidden truths about self-healing. Until then, visit ForbiddenDoctor.com and enter your email to receive a special coupon for the Forbidden Doctor Special Scientific Formula, our long life energy enzymes. This custom-made one-capsule supplement is created from the most concentrated energy-stimulating enzymes. For more information, be sure to head over to ForbiddenDoctor.com. These podcasts are provided for information only. The previous statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Nothing that was said is intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.